back to the first week of Lent. This is Father Mark Toops over at Christ the Redeemer Catholic Church in Thibodaux, and this week, inside our podcast series entitled Intentional, you and I are peering into temptation and asking God to show us not only what He wants to do in our life by teaching us how to resist temptation, but also teaching us how to be intentional, to choose God in the face when we're tempted to choose other things that pull us away from God. Yesterday, that's what we talked about, how resisting temptation, just like muscles grow with resistance, our spiritual muscles grow with resistance. And today, what I'd like to do is I'd like to shine light on temptation itself, and then tomorrow, we're going to talk about the exact time when we need to resist temptation. But I'd like to package our conversation today inside the light that can shine on the false promises that are offered to us in temptation. And I want you to think about whatever it is that you most often fall into, whatever vice that you most often are lured with, or the most predominant sin that's in your life now. Just think about that as we have this conversation today. Temptation is never going to fulfill you with the very thing that it offers you. In other words, it's never going to come through on its promises. And yesterday I was using the image of Adam, who was a recovering alcoholic. It was a fictitious person, just in a random example. And just for a moment, if we could go back to Adam and kind of unpack the temptation and how it never fulfills Adam with its promises. Yesterday I shared with you how Adam was at the traffic light and he was frustrated with life and he was frustrated with his marriage. And he was being tempted to drown himself into just a beer, right? Just to kind of forget about everything. When Adam was in the parking lot and he was being tempted to drink, the temptation was saying things, you might say, to him like, you can forget about it all. You'll feel better if you have a few beers. No one's going to find out if you drink. Whatever the specific temptations sound like to Adam, you can imagine just in those examples right there, how there's always a lie inside the lie. So, for example, the temptation that Adam is experiencing at that moment, that, hey, you'll feel better. Well, he's not going to feel better long term. He might feel better in the short term, but you see, the temptation's not going to come through on its promise, because eventually Adam's going to feel worse, not better. The temptation that Adam is hearing at that moment, that no one's going to find out. Well, no one's going to find out in the immediate present moment, but eventually somebody's going to find out. Eventually he's going to find out what he did. Eventually his wife will probably find out what he did. In other words, the temptation doesn't come through on its promise. It's important for us to hear that today, that temptation always lies. Its intention is never authentic. It doesn't want the best for us. And it offers us something that it can never ultimately provide. And yet, we keep going after it, don't we, right? It's like an illusion. It's like chasing smoke. You can never put your hands around it. You can see it, but you can never wrap your hands around it and claim it. Temptation never comes through on what it offers us. Tomorrow, as we have a conversation about temptation, we'll talk about when is it that we need to say no. But today, what I want you to do is look at your temptation. The very temptation that you've been thinking about ever since I asked you to think about it. And ask yourself today, what is it promising you? What are all the things that it's luring you to believe that it can offer you? Think about that today. This is where we're going to go the rest of the week. Tomorrow we're going to talk about when we need to learn to resist temptation. And then as we turn the corner on Thursday and Friday, we're going to give you some practical, specific spiritual exercises that you can begin to incorporate in your life to become more intentional in the face of temptation. Let's look deep inside your heart. Ask yourself, what is temptation luring you with? And until we see you tomorrow on Wednesday, God bless you.